Doctor Who has attracted a brand new breed of fan. Fans that I'm sure will be with this franchise for the long haul. Well, maybe not. Today we're going to look at an article written by one of these so-called new fans. Here's Lucy Jones with an, brilliant column about Doctor Who in The Independent. Doctor Who Backlash shows why it's time to bin the phrase politically correct. This should be interesting. Here we go. Until recently, Doctor Who did not appeal to me. Daleks and the TARDIS and Time Lords sounded hammy and naff, and it all looked a bit amdram whenever I tuned in. I didn't get why adults were obsessed with the children's program. But then I heard that this latest series had pissed off Jeremy Clarkson, so this time I had to come for a closer look. So Lucy, what you're saying here is you really don't care about the show at all. You just decided to take a look at what you had written off as a children's show because it made Jeremy Clarkson mad. Perhaps also because you wanted to seem hip amongst your circle of friends. What's that word? Oh yeah. Basic! I'm sure we'll all be impressed to learn your reasons for suddenly becoming a Doctor Who fan. I quickly learnt that the current season, its 11th, included episodes about Rosa Parks, the partition of India, and witch trials. My interest was piqued. Already intrigued by the casting of the first female Doctor, I was told by a friend that queer characters and people of color were woven into the narrative in a radical, normalizing way, which would make a welcome difference to pretty much everything I have ever read and watched, so I decided to give it a go. I see, Lucy. As I stated, you started watching so you could be seen as cool amongst your elitist leftist friends, and to help feed your apparent sense of superiority over everyone else. At least if this article is anything to go by. You like the show because of topics and characters that were only included in the way they were because this was dictated by the BBC, and Chris Chibnall, the showrunner, wanted them anyway. These were not the reasons why Doctor Who fans became Doctor Who fans before Series 11. Well, my name is Lucy, and I'm a Whovian. No, you're not. Have you supported this show for almost 40 years? Because I have. Do you buy the merchandise? Almost certainly not. Can you even name a Doctor from the original series? Probably not. Can you even name a Doctor other than Whittaker from the new series? Probably not. As I said, you're just claiming to be a fan because you want to appear woke. Basic! From the off, I found this series refreshing. How can you find this series refreshing, Lucy? You didn't even watch it until now. In the first episode, Ryan Sinclair, a 19-year-old, is being taught to ride his bike by his grandmother and step-grandfather, a mixed-race couple. He has dyspraxia, a subject that was barely ever touched on again. I don't think I've ever seen a dyspraxic character on television. And no Doctor Who before this either, eh, Lucy? Jodie Whittaker soon entered as the Doctor, and it was thrilling to watch such a brilliant actor as the lead. Brilliant! Brilliant? Perhaps you would know how badly she pales to previous Doctors, Lucy, if you actually watched before the Great Wokening. Basic! Soon after, there was a brief aside in which Yaz and Ryan discussed their experiences of being people of color. Way to get with the wokeness there, Lucy. I have an idea. How about you give up your job as a pointless column writer so a person of color can have it? I get called a Paki when I'm sorting out a domestic, or a terrorist when I'm coming home from the mosque, said Yaz. Yes, Lucy. That's because Yaz is a terrible cop and can't handle criminals being mean to her. In later episodes, Anissa's wife was casually referred to in a natural way, as it should be. It was gently groundbreaking. That wasn't casual, Lucy. It was jarring how shoehorned in it was. If it served the plot, then fine. I'd have no problem with it. But it was there because it had to be there. And how exactly was it groundbreaking? You're saying that this demographic has never been represented on screen before? The latest episode, about a blind girl abandoned by her father, who crossed into a parallel universe to be with a lonely, conscious universe masquerading as his late wife, was superb. That episode that took a dump on single fathers. Yeah, that was superb. Basic! Although the ratings for the series have been good, and critically it's been praised, the backlash from people online has been fiery. Good lord, the ratings are in a steady downward spiral, but they are being propped up by people that haven't yet realized what a mess this season is, virtue-signaling elites like our friend Lucy here, and people like myself, that are basically hate-watching at this point. It's a car wreck, Lucy. People can't help but not turn away from a car wreck. It's human nature. As for critical praise, yes, by shills, people that don't want to get alienated by their NPC friends, and people terrified of garnering the wrath of the far left, compared to everything that has come before. Even if you take the politics out, this series is the worst thing Doctor Who has ever produced. By far. Some complain that it's trying to push a social justice warrior agenda, or that it's being too preachy or worthy. Lucy, that's an understatement at this point. The phrase politically correct is the most common criticism. Even the Jeremy Vine show asked its viewers if Doctor Who had become too politically correct. It's well past politically correct at this point, Lucy. Now it's just hateful. Basic! Then we have a quote from Mandeep Gill, which I already tore apart in another video. Then we get Lucy's brilliant take. When I see the phrase politically correct or PC, I tend to roll my eyes. I have a feeling that you do that a lot, Lucy, and interpret it as a signifier of how a person feels about race, gender, sexuality, or ecological issues. No, Lucy, it's not a signifier of these things. It's a signifier that people are tired of having certain narratives rammed down their throats at every opportunity, normally by people who think they're better than everyone else. Lucy, in my early years of journalism, like last year? I moderated comments at a conservative newspaper website. PC gone mad, a very common epithet, was always shorthand for a tedious expression of disapproval at recycling, or a person of color, or a woman being given some kind of platform or attempt at equality. No, it's not, Lucy, and you don't really seem to understand what the word equality means. Equality means that everyone is given an equal chance at success, regardless of race, gender, or sexual orientation. What we have now, Lucy, especially within organizations like the BBC, is equity, which is something completely different. Equity means that people are handed opportunities not because they deserve them, or have worked for them, but because of their gender, race, or sexual orientation. This sounds a bit discriminatory to me, Lucy. Basic! The history of the phrase is fascinating and too long and complex to go into here. No, Lucy, why bother giving any background context to the central focus and argument of your column? It has been passed between left and right over the past century to mean different things. What things, Lucy? Again, context. Most recently, Donald Trump has manipulated it as a tool to stir up resentment, fear, and division. And there we have it. Orange man bad. Whenever a far leftist can't win an argument, that's always where they go. I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct, he told journalist and broadcaster Megyn Kelly in 2015. Millions have lapped up his anti-PC efforts. His calls to ban Muslims from entering the United States, for example, were not politically correct, according to the president. Well, Lucy, things are too politically correct, and this is one of the reasons why Trump swept into office. People are sick and tired of elite leftists telling them what horrible people they are. I don't support everything Trump says or does, but I can understand why people supported him. It doesn't really apply to me anyway. I live in Canada, and we have this idiot to deal with. And would you people stop misrepresenting Trump's ban on Muslims? It wasn't an outright ban, and it was a security measure. Do your research. Basic. Words have consequences. Yes, because of feels. And in the rise of populism, you mean people no longer wanting to support racist and sexist leftists that only want to talk down to them. These ones certainly have. So instead of writing it off, I want to delve deeper into the Doctor Who criticism and try to understand what these swaths of shocked people online were outraged by, and if it had anything valuable to say about how people feel about changing societal and cultural norms. What does politically correct actually mean? I'm sure we're about to get a thorough explanation, and I'm sure Lucy is going to be very clear when laying out her categories of analysis. The dictionary helped, but only a bit. You used a dictionary? Lucy, we have this thing called the internet that allows you to research topics, which allows you to examine scholarly articles that delve into both sides, and you used a dictionary. The Cambridge Dictionary says someone who is politically correct believes that language and actions that could be offensive to others, especially those relating to sex and race, should be avoided. Collins defined it as demonstrating progressive ideals, especially by avoiding vocabulary that is considered offensive, discriminatory, or judgmental, especially concerning race and gender. It didn't quite explain the barb of the phrase. The mystery remained. That's because your research abilities, if this article is to be used as an example, are less developed than the average high school student. Lucy, I read Clarkson's column, which took issue with the Rosa Parks episode and a male character who gives birth. The Doctor has visited a man giving birth and has visited a civil rights activist in Alabama in the 1950s, he wrote. The BBC is having a hard time with being neutral these days. The word neutral speaks volumes. What is neutral? Is it the straight white English man? How is it not neutral to base episodes on the real-life stories of people of color who changed history? The Rosa Parks episode was not neutral, Lucy. It took an historical event of great significance and used it to attack Americans and white people, and the pregnant man was just cringeworthy, if anything. What neutral means, Lucy, is taking a centrist position, a position that examines both sides of the argument, and comes to a conclusion not based on one's emotions or one's sense of superiority, but upon the evidence at hand. What Doctor Who and the BBC and you are doing is taking a biased position. In traditional academia, meaning not the joke that it is now, taking a biased position without supporting evidence is akin to academic dishonesty. It's not that Doctor Who decided to portray a real-life story of a person of color who changed history. It was the way they went about it. A more neutral position would have been to include white characters from the time period that also fought against racism, but the BBC did not do this because of its current agenda. To solve this riddle, It's not a riddle, Lucy. I read comments and watched vlogs of people complaining about the series, and this is what I found. Did you watch some of my videos, Lucy? I'm pretty sure you watched some of my videos. Did they make you sad? Did they make you angry? Does people using actual evidence to counter your elitist worldview with logic trigger you? People felt that equality, diversity, and civil rights, otherwise known as political correctness, was being shoved down their throats. Yes, Lucy, that's exactly how we felt. That's the first honest statement you've made. That it was synonymous with control, that the BBC was trying to drive an ulterior agenda and impose an ideology onto fans. Yes, Lucy, that's exactly what the BBC is doing. Perhaps you should read the diversity and inclusion strategy. Actually, never mind, because that would contradict your entire argument. Go on. Other complaints were that the witch hunt episode rubbed in their faces that women weren't equal to men 400 years ago. No, Lucy, we didn't like this episode because the plot was crap and because Jodie Whittaker had to remind us of female oppression from a modern perspective at every opportunity. And men didn't have it so great 400 years ago either, Lucy. There was a lot of swearing and anger and concern that the Rosa Parks episode was going to upset people in the United States for being too social justice warrior. Which people? Well, considering the ratings in the US aren't doing so well, I'd say more than a few people might have been upset. You also forgot to mention, Lucy, that this was the first of 2 episodes that took shots at Americans. You forgot to mention arachnids in the UK, which was little more than anti-American propaganda. I tried to understand the grown adults who would use this phrase seriously. I really did. Well, Lucy, when we use these terms, we are referring to people such as yourself, so I'm not surprised you don't understand it. When one views oneself as superior to others, then one is naturally going to diminish views one doesn't agree with, by writing those who espouse those opinions off as children. The far left just loves condescension, is the outrage of fear of being silenced themselves. Lucy, the right is being silenced at every opportunity, while the far-left message is glorified and evangelized through all forms of media. 1984 censorship is real, but it only applies to one side. Or a toddler-like tantrum at the way society is changing. What is the threat? Or the fear? The other? That's the sign of a bad argument, Lucy. Attacking and name-calling the other side. People are not angry because they hate people that are not like them. They are angry because they have been ignored. Because they have been told they don't matter. Because at every opportunity, they are told they have some mystical privilege, when more often than not, they may be struggling just to put food on the table. They are angry at being denied employment and academic opportunities because the other, as you call it, has to take precedence, and they are told they have no choice in the matter. The discomfort of having prejudice confronted? It's not prejudice, Lucy. It's anger, because people have been pushed aside through no fault of their own. I suppose normalizing diversity and equality is always going to make some people feel uncomfortable when it veers away from their normal and their neutral. What is their normal and neutral? You have failed to define this, Lucy. It is not normal for someone to demand even the slightest bit of respect in life. It's not normal to believe that everybody should be given the same opportunities. It's a strange furor, because Doctor Who was originally conceived as an educational show, so episodes about the civil rights movement and the partition of India are not out of place with its creator, Sidney Newman's idea. A couple of things here, Lucy. As I'm sure you're aware, being the lifelong Whovian you are, yes, Doctor Who was originally conceived as an educational show, but this idea was thrown out very early because these stories were not popular. Even amongst die-hard Whovians, some of the Hartnell stories are an acquired taste. The idea was also to do pure historicals, not historicals with aliens. Moreover, the focus was on education, not indoctrination, not pushing a specific agenda, the way Series 11 has been doing. Also, it's often, bar a few missteps, been politically aware. It has tackled issues in the past, but it was never as one-sided as it's been since Series 9. As the actor Nicholas Pegg said on Twitter, in a post decrying a new Doctor who fights social justice issues rather than Daleks. He gave a speech about the end of racism, Ark in Space, started a workers' resolution by quoting Marx, the Sunmakers, overthrew the galactic slave trade, Warrior's Gate, and never met the Daleks or Cybermen in the 80s. That last one doesn't make any sense. A question to everyone who keeps bringing these episodes up. Yes, each of them did touch on important topics, but did any of them do so by diminishing an entire group of people based on their race or gender? No, they most certainly did not. I'm glad I gave the season a chance. Yes, you gave it a chance because your cool friends told you it was woke and you didn't want to be excommunicated. It's an exciting moment when one of the oldest and most established programs has the courage and imagination to include and make visible the previously excluded. It makes for a much more interesting world. Very fluffy conclusion, Lucy, that says nothing. I think this article is important for one reason only. It demonstrates how weak the argument against people such as ourselves is. Every claim made in this column can be easily disproven and countered with logic. It uses creative wording that gives the reader the illusion that it's actually saying something when it's really saying nothing. It just repeats the same lines we've heard over and over again. And these are lines that we're getting sick of hearing. I'm going to present my challenge to Lucy again. Lucy, you say that you are fully supportive of diversity and inclusion. I suggest that you step aside as a column writer and allow what you see as members of underrepresented groups to take over. Lucy Jones needs to set an example and demonstrate true altruism and let people speak for themselves. Somehow, I don't think she's going to take me up on this offer. People like Lucy will never give up these positions. They expect other people to do it for them. Basic. And that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. And as always, everyone, thank you for watching, and have a great day.